Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. Still super busy with my top secret project, but I didn't want folks to think that the channel had dried up. Far from it. So I figured I would bust out a short video. I know I say that all the time, but to me, just for context, to me a short video is 12 minutes or less. Today we're going to talk about what I think is the most powerful tool in your toolbox. I'm going to give you a not very hypothetical scenario in which this tool is discreetly deployed in order to save the day. The party are ambushed by assassins from the clock. They capture one, dispatch the rest, and question their prisoner. Dan, playing the paladin, naturally wants to get some information out of their victim, and after a few questions are answered, Jason, playing the classic murder hobo, starts to get bored. He feels, and for the record I thought he was right, that they'd gotten everything they were going to get out of their prisoner, and Dan was prolonging the interrogation. Jason had read me better than Dan, no surprise, as Jason had played before, and Dan hadn't. So Jason decides to take matters into his own hands and says, I execute the guy. Now, this is a problem. Yes, they'd probably gotten everything useful out of their prisoner, but Dan had never played D&D before and was having fun with the interrogation. In no other game is the questioning of prisoners literally up to the player. No dialogue trees, no choices put in front of you. It is 100% up to whether or not you can think of the right question, assuming there is a right question. So Jason says, I execute the guy, and I can tell this is going to upset Dan. We're about to have a little inter-party conflict, and players might get angry at each other and come away having had a bad time. I turn to the group and I say, all right, you see Jason's character sigh, roll his eyes, and reach for his sword. The party intervenes. Wait, whoa, okay, all right, we're done with this guy. Let's strip him of all his gear and let him go. The tension is diffused, and everyone gets what they want. Jason wanted to move on. We moved on. Dan wanted to question the prisoner. He got to question the prisoner. When it seemed like the questioning might go on forever, we got a clear and dramatic moment when it resolved. Did you notice what I did? Did you see the tool in action? I mean, apart from this tool. You are the dungeon master, and while you don't control the party or their actions, and you didn't design the rules, you are in control of the most powerful element of the game. Time. You and you alone literally control the flow of time. You decide what happens next and how finally to slice the narrative. If one player is about to do something stupid and you want to give that player time to think about it, or the other players a chance to react, you can step everything down and slice time very finely. Jason said, I take out my sword and execute the guy. But I decide what happens next, and I decided to chop that moment into very fine slices. The players decide not to chase the bandits into the forest and toward the adventure you had ready, and instead they're going to go to the big city and gather information. You, with no map of the city, no information about it at all, except a name you jotted down a few weeks ago, you freak out. Of course you freak out. Your players are about to run into the giant invisible wall with a sign on it reading, under construction.
It's just a bit further.
Great movie. So you slice up the time it would take to get to the city. Think of all the crap that can happen on the way there. They're ambushed by elves. They meet a caravan on the way. They find a burning cart and inhuman tracks leading off into the forest and totally not toward the adventure you had ready in the first place. What? No. You see what I mean? In this sense, D&D is a comic book. The players are giving you an outline for what happens next, but you decide what's in the next panel. I strongly recommend the seminal work on this subject, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. It's full of a lot of really useful information about art and storytelling and, among many other points and lessons, about how important the space between panels is. That space between this and this controls everything. It controls pacing, emotion, information, conflicts, points of view. And you decide what happens between those two panels, how much time passes, where the camera cuts, whose point of view you're going to switch to. This is the best arrow in your quiver. As you learn to play around with it, experiment, you will become the master of it, and your players won't even know you're doing these things. One of the things that happens after these videos is people often say, that sounds great, but how? And usually my answer is, what do you mean how? I just showed you. That's all there is. I can't walk the path for you. I can only point the way.
Here endeth the lesson.
That's the video on time, folks. I hope you liked it. I want to take a few minutes to turn you on to some new YouTubers I discovered that are relevant to our interests. First, this dude, Lindy Beige. He has way more subscribers than me, but the YouTube audience is so large, I suspect many of you have never heard of him. He has a whole boatload of super useful videos about how people fought in the Middle Ages and stuff that's directed straight at gamers. He has one about how few people it took to defend an actual castle. And the video I'm going to link to in the doobly-doo is about how useful a torch really is that blew my mind. Actually, how useless, I think, is a better way of phrasing it. He's just a great presenter, super charismatic, and is talking passionately about something he's knowledgeable about, and that's what YouTube is for. Like this guy. This is the only YouTuber I follow who I actually have an impression of. Hi, I'm Wyoming's Dr. Jackson Crawford. aka Dr. Cowboy Viking. This dude teaches Old Norse language and myth at Berkeley, and he covers linguistics and the prose and poetic Edda, and basically just wants to tell you about what the pre-Christian Scandinavians, aka the people we call the Vikings, told stories about. And it seems like he's talking about language, but he's really talking about culture, and to anyone running a game in a faux medieval European setting, it is super useful, and I just think being mindful of language and how it expresses culture is something every DM benefits from. The video I linked to below is a great example of this because it's about how Odin in disguise goaded Thor, and you learn a lot about what pre-Christian Scandinavians thought about heroism and masculinity, and I personally think I detect two different ages or cultures represented, with Odin representing the old way and Thor representing the new way. Also, just FYI, in another video this guy basically explains why I pronounce the name of these guys as Dwargar rather than the patently absurd Duergar. I want to see this dude get so popular he can afford to get a new camera with a remote, so Dr. Cowboy Viking doesn't have to start every video by reaching out to hit the record button. Finally, Kickstarter alert, I backed this thing, which is a D&D 5 supplement with a whole bunch of gods, basically like a modern version of the old Deities and Demigods book, which I know lots of DMs got many hours of inspiration from. As of the recording of this video, they only got about 2 days left, so check it out and see if it's interesting to you. I don't know any of these folks, purely just sharing stuff I thought was interesting. That's it, short video. If you want to help support the channel, come by my Amazon page. There's a link in the doobly-doo. I'm a fantasy author. If you like this channel, you'll probably like my books. Give them a shot. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next week, we're going to make a video for the players about losing. Until next time, peace out.